they voted on it, they said, we'll keep this allocation for 10 years. And it will sunset at the end of October in 2023. After talking to the police department, the fire department, and the city, the city board of directors said, based on the needs projected into the future, we want to keep the allocation in place. And we want to allow the citizens to vote on that to see if they want to keep it in place. And so that's what the vote is. If you vote for the ballot initiative, then the allocation remains the same. So it removes that sunset clause and allows the current allocation in that sales tax to continue on. To vote no for that, this ballot initiative means that funding allocation now changes. 80% of that money then goes to the streets for street improvements, 20% goes to the general fund, no dedicated funding for police, no dedicated funding for fire. And so for us, as the fire chief specifically, we really, the importance for me to have a dedicated funding source in place allows me to plan long-term. It allows me to save up. This money brings in, it's estimated this year to bring in just over $1 million for us. And that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you think in terms of building a new fire station, outfitting that fire station with an ambulance and a fire engine and personnel to staff it, we're talking $4 to $5 million for that initiative. Something that without a dedicated funding source, we're not able to plan and prepare for that nearly as effectively as the growth of the city continues. We strive to keep up with that. And so that's really the basis for that decision. A yes vote continues the allocation as it currently is, allowing us to continue to have our dedicated funding. A no vote removes that dedicated funding from us, reallocates that money to other areas. And so I'm happy to open up the floor for any questions. So we'll just do that now. Again, the hard one's to Jordan.
Okay, I'm trying to. So if it's no, does the current allocation give it to the city and then they allocate back to you? Or?
Yeah, so great question. So she said, if they vote no, what happens to that allocation, right? So the way it's set up is it reverts back to the original allocation, which is 20% city general fund and 80% street department. So there would be no dedicated for police and fire. Any needs that we would have at the time, we would have to go to the city's general fund, and now it's getting 20%. Then it would get 20%, and so our 20% plus the police's 20% would now be trying to vie for that same 20% that's there today.
So you're not lowering taxes.
A yes vote, that's correct. A yes vote keeps the sales tax, that percentage in place, and no vote also keeps the sales tax percentage in place. Yes, ma'am.
This is probably a common question. So if we vote to keep it, that's forever or for another 10 years?
Great question. So forever is kind of a relative term, but it does remove the sunset clause. So it would stay in perpetuity for as long as the citizens wanted it in place. Yep.
And then where do you normally get your funding from? It's probably a very ignorant question, but I don't know.
Sure. Some of our money comes from the general fund today. We don't generate all the revenue that we need to operate. So the city general fund does provide us the remainder of that. But we get roughly about $1 million from the sales tax that we use for equipment, upkeep, maintenance, things like that. We also generate funds through our ambulance revenue. So when we go out and pick up a patient, we bill their insurance company for the costs of that, and we generate funds through that. We also provide fire and EMS coverage into rural Benton County, just outside of our city limits border. And we have a contract with Benton County to provide that service. And so that generates about $140,000. We provide coverage, same thing, into West Siloam-Springs for 14 square miles. And they also provide us, it's roughly about $350,000 a year in revenue. So we have several contracts for service that we also generate revenue with, but the bulk of what we generate is through the sales tax and ambulance revenues. Yes, sir?
Do you have a contract with the casino?
So they're covered as part of the contract with West Siloam-Springs. Yes, sir. I feel like I'm getting all the hard questions here. Yes,
You
ma'am.
mentioned a new fire department, a new fire building, and in the long-range plans, there is one for the east side of Siloam. Is that still in the works?
Yeah, great question. So the question was future buildings, a future fire station on the east side of the city, and that is something that we've identified as a future need. The city continues to grow, our population increases. There's a lot of development happening in that eastern side of the city. And so we've identified areas around the airport property that the city already owns portions of that we want to kind of earmark for that future fire station number 4. Yes, ma'am.
So I did just want to brag on you as the fire chief for the state of Arkansas in 2022, fire chief of the year for the whole state of Arkansas.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And he is the president of all the fire chiefs in the Fire Association for Arkansas. So the fact is, he's a very good chief and a good manager. And so my question for Jordan is, would you not agree? He's a very good chief.
He is. It's good to have role models
There
and
you
people
go.
that can teach you. I don't know that chief is ever going to be in my future, but at least I can watch someone that is successful at it and make that decision.
We're proud of you, and thanks for your good management.
Thank you.
I just need to say that our hay barn caught on fire just a few weeks ago, and these guys beat us to the barn.
Wow.
But we were coming in from Tulsa. So they were there with their hoses. Yeah. Yeah, I think you had quite a few trucks out there.
There were several, yes. We had some from the surrounding communities as well coming in to help bring in some water initially because there wasn't any fire hydrants in the general locations.
Yeah, they call it hay smoke.
Can you just tell people about your program of, I don't know what you call it, but when you assist people when they have a fall in the home?
Yes, absolutely. So 2 more things I almost forgot about. One is we understand the needs of the community. We exist to provide service to the community. And one of the things that we've tried to really emphasize lately, not really lately, but for the duration of my tenure here at least, is sometimes we have citizens who may be elderly or have some sort of infirmary that they're not able to always assist themselves where they need to be, right? Sometimes they fall down, sometimes they can't get out of bed, they get to a position where they're not able to get where they need to go. And so we do what we call lift assists, but generally that's just when somebody needs our help, right? They call us and we come in and we assist them out of the chair into their bed or off the ground. They're not injured, they don't need an ambulance necessarily, but they just need some help getting up to maybe some other area of their house. And so we've been doing that now for several years, and we've had a lot of good feedback from that. It does utilize us a lot sometimes, but again, that's certainly what we're there for, and we're there to, it gives us also an opportunity not just to help them to where they need to go in that moment, but it helps us really assess their living conditions and say, part of the reason why you're falling is because you have these extension cords across your living room floor, or you have, a rug that's causing you trouble. So, maybe we can identify some of those and help prevent future issues for them as well. So, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that. The last, yes, question.
I'm just going to attest to that, Chief, that when you guys do that, it is a very helpful service. My parents had to have that. My dad, actually, you guys had to go out in the evening, late at night. He could not get up. He's a big guy. Mom could not get him up. And when they had made sure he was all right, it was my mother who was having the heart palpitations, the high blood pressure, everything. And they ended up taking hers off. She was not the one that they came out there for. So it's one of those things where you don't know how good we have it until something like that occurs. And we're just very thankful for the dedicated men and women in our fire department. And so many of them that show up, they've grown up here and they know my parents and they know other people around the community. And that's really great that that personal service is right there. So.
Thank you for recalling that
They
story.
actually thought my dad was bleeding. He had fallen on a piece of cherry pie.
After the thorough assessment, realized it was just true. You know, we understand too, and a lot of these, you know, it can feel sometimes taxing, you know, to go out and do this, but we remind ourselves that sometimes we're the only thing standing between this individual or their, you know, husband and wife and a nursing home or some assisted living facility. And you know, if you're like me, I don't ever want to be in one of those. And so anything I can do to stay in my own house, I'm going to do it, and I will be thankful for the fire department. I'm going to call Jordan all the time to come and help me out. Although we're the same age, so that might be a bit challenging. The last thing I want to mention real quick, or yes, go ahead.
What do you anticipate for staffing growth needs? We're just new to the community and we're seeing a lot of new people coming in. Is that, you planning for that?
Yes, absolutely. The question was about growth of the city and how we're planning on growing our staff. And we actually took some information to our board of directors last year, I believe it was, with what we saw our projections being. And so we're working to put together the budget. We added 2 new positions this year, and we're going to request some more positions in next year's budget as well. And so hopefully we're successful with that, but that's something we continue to monitor, especially given the fact that we do run fire and EMS. Not all fire departments run a fire-based EMS system, and we do, and we continue to see those numbers increase year after year. Other questions? Okay.
What was the last thing you were gonna talk about?
Yeah, lastly, just real quick before I turn the mic back over, you know, sometimes we're asked, you know, what can we do to assist you? You know, what can the citizens do to assist the fire department? And I can tell you, you do it day in and day out by your kind words, the support that you give us, and it doesn't go unnoticed, and we certainly appreciate that. This coming week, or this week actually, on Friday and Saturday, our Firefighters Auxiliary, which is made up of individuals throughout the community that want to assist the fire department in any way that they can, they'll be doing a rib sale. And so they're gonna be set up at Fire Station 1 on Friday and Saturday. They're gonna have pre-cooked ribs that they'll be cooking starting on Wednesday, or starting on Thursday. And they'll be available for the community. So if you want one of those, rack of ribs, I think it's $25. So far, we've had good feedback over the last couple of years with this event. Everyone seems to think that they're good ribs. I know I get full out of them, so. But anyway, Friday and Saturday, Fire Station 1, swing by, and they're until sold out. Yes, sir.
Is Fire Station 1 on Sherry Whitlock?
Yes, sir. 1450 Sherry Whitlock Drive. That's correct. Thank you all very much.
Okay, next group, you're up.
Nope, I'm gonna stay right here. I'm loud, so I did my phone.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Everybody loves firemen, so. Now I gotta tell you about the bad side of everything. So, I'm Detective Ron Coble with the Siloam-Springs Police Department. A little bit about my background, I've been in law enforcement since 2004. I came to Siloam-Springs in 2005. I've done everything from supervised, K-9, anything you can do on patrol. In 2017, I was switched to the CID, where I started working general cases. And then in 2019, I started transitioning to cyber, because we saw the increase in cyber crimes as well as crimes against children online. I am part of the Arkansas State Police Task Force for Internet Crimes Against Children, as well as part of the FBI Task Force for Human Trafficking, Missing, Exploited Children. So I got a lot of training, and I do a lot of work in that area, where it's mostly what I do 24/7 anymore at work is crimes against children in some kind of capacity. So they wanted me to talk about the community and what we're seeing in right now. Before that though,
I'm Deandra. My name is Deandra Strickland. I'm a corporal at the Siloam-Springs Police Department. I've been with the city, this is our 17th year, right? Yeah, 17 years, started as a dispatcher, worked as a dispatcher for 2 years, went to the academy, started in patrol for 5 years. Then I went to CID as a detective in the criminal investigation division. Did that for a little bit. My true passion beginning in law enforcement was to be with the kids and around the kids. So the first chance I got out of CID and I went to the schools, which is where I work now. I also do all of our community relations type stuff, but I'm mainly assigned as a school resource officer in 2 of the elementaries. I am one of only 2 female officers that we have for the whole entire city, so I get pulled all over the place all the time. So you may see me at the high school or one of the other schools if needed, or at events like this, or, you know, all different kinds of things. So that's me, that's where I'm at. I'm in the schools. If you ever have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to either give you the answer. If I don't know the answer, we'll find somebody who does somewhere.
Yeah, we're only a week apart on our hiring dates.
Yes.
So we've seen a lot together.
Yes, we have.
So, but I know a couple questions that were asked earlier is, you guys, everybody's seen recently in the news that Siloam-Springs has had some major cases come in, be sexual extortion or people coming over here to meet children. And those are my cases, so I'll kind of give what I can on it, because I know that's kind of an interest. Did you have a question?
Oh, no,
Oh,
I'm
no.
distracted myself.
So, back in August, the FBI task force, we ran a operation in Siloam-Springs for chatting. Basically, we would go online, play different ages. I have multiple personas I play. I'm a chatter, so when they think they're talking to a 13-year-old girl, 13-year-old boy, it's actually me they're talking to. So, we started the operation, and within a few hours, we had guys who were willing to come over here and meet and have inappropriate relations with children that thought to be children. And just the 2 days that we ran it here in Siloam-Springs, we made several arrests. I arrested a guy who came over from Oklahoma to what he thought was, he was meeting a 14-year-old boy near a park. We arrested him. Also, we arrested a few other people from and it's not always just children. Sometimes it's prostitution, which is huge. So you have what we call, you've all heard the terms, the pimps, the ones who are sex trafficking these girls, making them do things. We've arrested those as well. Trying to think what I can, it's still an ongoing investigation, so I can only basically kind of talk about what was released to the public through the news media. The other major case that you've probably seen in the news, I don't know, it was a guy named Matthew Nance. He worked at the bank there in Walmart. And this one took off really quickly. That's why it's so important that we talk to our children and express, when things like this happen, they come forward, they talk to us, they let us know, we report it to the police. Because this guy had been sexually extorting girls for 4+ years that we know of now. What happened was, one 17-year-old girl, he started trying to extort because he had got her phone at the bank, because you know, you hand your phone to a teller, hey, I need to do an app, I need to update this app. You don't think anything of it. He would take that phone, go through it, find their photos, send it to himself, use it later on to extort them. So she went forward, came to report, I started doing the investigation. He confessed to this one username, and then after the news hit, then all these girls started coming forward. And I have over 50 victims right now.
Wow.
With range, everything from sexual extortion to sexual assault, kidnapping. And so that's a case that's probably going to go both state and federal. He's currently in Washington County, almost a $500,000 bond. But I know Siloam-Springs is a small town, but but the sexual extortion of our children is getting pretty bad, where I'm working multiple cases where, you know, our children just, they're naive. You know, these people get online with them, start chatting with them, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, all different kinds of social media websites. Roadblock is another one that's becoming a big thing. And, you know, they'll send their nudes, not thinking anything of it. And next thing you know, they're being stored for either more photos, money, and if they don't comply, they already have their friends list, they'll send it out to all their friends. And we've worked cases where they have sent them out to hundreds of their friends. So it's important to talk to the kids, let them know that, you know, if this does happen, come forward, because we work the Matthew Nance case, we were working it, backtracking it, where these girls, he was done it 4 years ago, where the girls thought it was not a big deal. They thought they were the only one. They were the only one. And so it took a brave 17-year-old girl to come forward, and it just opened the floodgates for everybody else, because then they felt safe, they came forward, and it's just been a huge task. Like she was saying, it was August, after the Snapchat, or the chat operation, Benton County ran a operation where they went and made contact with sex offenders throughout Benton County. I think it was roughly around 600 sex offenders throughout the whole county. Siloam-Springs alone, we have about 35 registered sex offenders in the city, ranging for levels 1, 2s. We've got a 3 and a couple of 4s that work at some of our industries here that live in Oklahoma. But out of the 35-ish that we have, we were able to arrest 6 sex offenders and 2 other people involved that were violation of non-compliant, meaning that they weren't registering their vehicles, their social media accounts. A lot of it was that, where they had social media accounts they weren't supposed to have because they were probably talking to underage girls, underage boys. So, I know I'm probably close to the time, so I'll open it up for questions. Let's just, go ahead.
Are there consequences? When you arrest them, are there consequences? Because we keep seeing things that make you feel like there's nothing that happens when people do this.
Can you repeat the question?
Consequences, yeah.
Yes, I've only been chatting since I went through class and everything since May. Since May, I've got 5 people who've tried to come to Siloam or have come to Siloam arrested. When they come to Siloam to meet, it's a class-wide felony, which is the same thing, classification is sexual assault, rape, murder. It's the highest level there is. So, the class-wise, everything, they get anywhere between 10 to 40 years or life in prison, just for that one charge.
Well, I think the reason why it seems like there's no consequence for it is because it takes time for it to be adjudicated through the court system. Because once we make the arrest, they go to jail, they have to see a judge, there has to be either a bond set or no bond set, depending upon what the judge says, and then there has to be a trial. Everybody is given that right to have a fair trial, right? So they have to have that trial process too before anything is said. And sometimes over time, if the case isn't, fancy enough for the news, it's not put out there. So you don't always know what ends up happening with it in the end. So that's why sometimes I think it seems like maybe there's nothing that ends up happening with it, because you don't know the outcome of it a lot of times.
Yeah, it takes a while. Like I said, the Matthew Nance case, I'm still working on it. I'm still getting discoveries on it. So that one will probably go for another year before it probably will even go to trial. There's a couple other cases that are getting ready to probably take plea deals. And that's a lot of times they'll take a plea deal instead of taking a chance to go to life or go to prison for life. You had a question, but?
Well, you said earlier, within 2 days, you had the thing that was going on here. How many arrests did you make within the 2 days?
We made 3, I believe it was 3 arrests. one of them was coming up here from around Conway area, but he felt bad for what he was doing, so he turned himself into the local sheriff's office down there and confessed to everything he was going to come up here and do with a 10-year-old kid.
And the other question I was gonna say, why in the world do the judges give any kind of law? You said a $500,000 law, why don't they just say, sorry, this is too important, we're not letting you have a chance of getting out? Because if they get a chance of bail, they're probably gonna skip to another country.
Yeah.
I know everybody has the right to it, but it just, certain things like this, it seems like you know. And then lastly, I just want to say, the praise and power to both of you for, I can tell you, it was hard to sleep at night if I was in the So, God bless both of you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What was the answer to the question? Wasn't there a question?
Well, it's just about bond. Do they have to have a bond?
It's 100% up to the judges. I mean, you're presumed innocent to proven guilty. So, I mean,
There's a lot of factors that gets taken into consideration for the judge to make that decision on whether they're a flight risk, if they have any past criminal history, if these, kind of things have happened before, are they, local to the area? Just, there's a lot of things that they take into consideration before they make that decision, but it is ultimately up to the judge to make that decision. Believe me, we don't disagree with you, but that's how it goes.
Sometimes in major cities, you see
Right,
murderers get $10,000 bond for whatever you did. So,
absolutely.
at least this one was not.
And that's the tough thing, I think sometimes it's hard for everyone to understand is when we're called to a scene to take care of whatever the issue might be, we go in, we do what we need to do, do our investigation. If there's an arrest to be made, we make an arrest. Once that arrest is made, they go to the court system at that point. And so, we may have some follow-up investigation that we have to do and other things with that. But from that point, it's pretty much kind of out of our hands, and it goes into the court system, and then that's where it gets, figured out in the long run. And people tend to think that we're still over there, doing things with it, and, unfortunately, we're kind of like on to the next thing, and then on to the next thing, so that's understandable.
yeah, they usually get pretty high bonds for this. The other guy, who, in August for the chat, he had no criminal history, and they gave him $250,000 bond. So it's still a lot of money to come up with.
She had a question right in front.
I don't have a question and a comment because we moved here from Minnesota and it is such a great joy. I finally, a police car was following me and I wasn't sure where I was going, so he went in front of me and I took a picture of the "In God We Trust"
Oh, yeah.
on the back of your cars, and I cannot tell you what a blessing it is to see that. And I know that that is true in the heart of what you're doing. And I just thank God, not just for you, but even for that message on your car.
It's great.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, it's okay.
Okay.
Because of the severity of the case, like you said, it could be like a rape or whatever, do they still have to only pay a percentage of their bond? Like if it's only 250 or only?
Yeah,
if
it's generally 10% usually. It's up to a bondsman actually what they want
Okay.
out of it, but that's if as long as the judge doesn't do it like a cash only bond. But most of the time with a high bond, they're gonna want collateral of a house, land.
Okay. You said there was 35 registered sex offenders in Siloam-Springs. So, how does that work? Are they on parole? Is somebody watching them? How do they get tracked? I mean, if they're registered, they
They're
would be at
registered.
risk of reoffending. So,
They're registered through us. Depends on their levels. Levels 1 and 2 have to come in every 6 months to make sure their stuff's updated, and 3s and 4s have to come in every 3 months. But anytime they change a phone number, address, work, vehicle, anything like that, they have 5 days to come in and notify us. If they don't come within 5 days, they get charged a Class C felony, and they go back to jail. Some of them are on probation, parole. Some of them are not. They're just sex offenders for life. after 15 years, they can petition the courts to be taken off the registry, but I've never seen a successful one yet that I know of.
So there's a website, ACIC, you can just Google ACIC sex offenders or Arkansas sex offenders, and you can go to that website and it will show you the sex offenders in whatever area you search. So the different levels, 1 and 2 are your lower levels, 3 and 4 are your higher levels. Each level has different requirements as far as like what they can do, where they can work, where they can live, all of those kind of things. I don't know if we still are, but I know we were in the Guinness Book of World Records at one point for having the most churches per capita.
Yeah.
And that's been a really good blessing for many reasons. But one of those reasons is the higher level sex offenders aren't allowed to be within so many feet of a school or a church. So that's kept some of them from living in the city limits. So that's kind of been an added benefit as well. So, but that website is there, available to the public. You can just Google ACIC sex offenders or Arkansas sex offenders, and it'll pull up there. It'll be ACIC, is it ACIC.org?
I think so.
I think
It's
so.
not always 100% accurate, because sometimes it'll show, like, it shows a level 3 in downtown, but he's moved away 8-9 years ago, but because how the system works is that we can't just remove people, so sometimes it's not completely accurate.
Right. Actual legitimate, I've only heard of one, but that was a parental, and that was years ago. That was the one that Miller worked.
We helped, a few years ago, we helped with one that was, the guy had kidnapped his ex-wife in Oklahoma and brought her over here, that we assisted with, but
There hasn't been any that was like a stranger type thing. It's always been, the only ones that I can think of in the years we've been here has been a parental or a spouse or something along that line. It wasn't ever a stranger type situation.
and sometimes if you see arrest reports on the news when it says like kidnapping, like Matthew Nance's case where he was charged with kidnapping, kidnapping also goes along with rape. If someone rapes somebody and forcibly holds them down, they usually get charged with kidnapping because they combine the two to make sure.
You said something about your chatting. Is there a number of chats that you will go through with one person as you're playing the role of, let's say, a 13-year-old? Is there a number that you, is it like 10 chats? Or you try to get it quicker than that? It all depends on his response and her response.
It all depends. We're not trying to entrap anybody, so we talk to them. Most of the people I talk to, I get my age out there pretty quickly, and 95% of them is like, "You're too young, you shouldn't be doing this," and they're in the conversations. So, I mean, if someone's not showing interest like they're going, then I just move on and forget them, because I don't want to make them do something they normally would not do. So, usually the ones I tell my age, they're the ones who get more aggressive. And those are the ones that end up coming over here and meeting. Over here.
What percentage do you have from Oklahoma, and what type of problems does that have, Oklahoma coming to Arkansas?
As in,
People that are trying to.
Any crimes or specifically like the sex crimes he was talking
Sex
about?
crimes.
Sex crimes.
it's all in the same area. They don't care where they travel from, whether it's be Oklahoma, Arkansas to Oklahoma, it doesn't matter. I said, we had a guy willing to drive 3.5 hours when we did our operation to come up here. He just felt bad and went to the local police department and turned himself in. So we had another guy who traveled from 3 states away. Years ago, there was one in Conway where a guy drove all the way from California to meet a girl, ended up killing her. So it's out there, it's real. That's why it's important for us to get the information out there so people are more aware of, this stuff actually does happen in Siloam-Springs. I try to catch as many as I can with the chatting, but I can't get them all.
Do you ever get to talk at the schools, some of the schools about this with kids or no?
enough with them. But that's the other thing, is I think that is key to having our officers in the schools, not just because I'm there and just because I love what I do, but we really have that opportunity to build relationships with these kids. We're there with them all day, every day. They get to see us, they get to know that we're more than just the uniform and the badge and the gun, and we build relationships that continue on. So they start to trust us, we become that trusted adult that they feel like if something was to happen, they could come talk to them. I had a girl that graduated, I worked 4 years over at middle school, and she graduated a couple years ago, and it was the year that we had the protests and things going on the Bentonville Square and Fayetteville Square, and all of that was happening, and she sent me a message one night through social media and said, I want to go to Fayetteville, I want to go to the protest, I want my voice to be heard, I feel like some things are being done that are not wrong, that are not right, and this was during George Floyd and all of that, and so I felt like she felt comfortable enough to reach out to me, knowing that a lot of those protests were anti-police, they were anti-law enforcement, but she felt comfortable enough, and she knew that I cared about her as a person, that she could reach out to me and say, hey, I want to go to this, and she said, what do I need to do to be safe? How do I do this and be safe about it? Honey, go and let your voice be heard, do what you need to do, but if there's officers there, do exactly what they tell you to do. Don't be throwing things, don't be acting crazy, just do what you need to do. Let your voice be heard, but do what they tell you to do. Let me know when you get home. I don't care what time it is of night, but let me know when you get home. So about 11:30 that night, she messaged me again. I made it home, everything was good, we were safe, we did exactly what we were supposed to do when they told us to do it, and everything was good. So, and I started with her at middle school. This was after she had graduated. I'm with the little bitty kindergartners and 3rd and 4th graders now, so I have even more opportunity to start building that relationship. And because of that, we're trying to add 2 more SROs this year, and then hopefully another one next year. So we'll have 8 total, hopefully within the next 5 years. So.
Sounds great.
I was just gonna follow up on that. We just voted to extend that contract on the school, and a lot of people don't understand how that works with the school. The schools reimburse the city for half of the salary benefits for each school resource officer. How many do we have?
We have 5 currently.
We have 5 now, and we're gonna get 2 more, yeah.
Yes.
And which one of you have, which school?
I have north side and south side.
Okay. I think we didn't have any of this when I was growing up, and I'm so thankful we have not just, officers who want to do it, but we have a school that wants us to have our police
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
And as I'm trying to tell some of the students that get sometimes a little in their head that it's not good, and I'm like, the officer is there for your safety, for the other students' safety, for the teachers and staff safety, but also, if you know of something, or if you're even having problems at home, if something's going on where you're having domestic your parents are domestic battery or whatever, go talk to the officer, because that's what they're there for. And so, I've been really appreciative we have a school system that wants to work with the city.
Well, and that's where we have the benefit. I can't remember how many years ago it was, the newspaper did an article on our program because we had the most officers in our schools, in our district, for the size that we had. We had more than Springdale, Bentonville, Fayetteville, for the amount of schools and the kids that we had. Now everybody's starting to play catch up because of unfortunate events that have happened, but starting with the little bitty ones, they remember who you are. They remember how you treated them all the way through to their high school years. So starting, at that young level and building these relationships with them, because I'm telling you, I go into the kindergarten in the morning, kindergarten and pre-K in the morning, and it's high fives and hugs and tying shoes, and it's not just, I'm this robot that's here, that I'm a scary person, and they ask the questions, ooh, you have a gun? Yes, I do, sweetheart. Why do you have a gun? Well, because you have to have a good guy that's there with the gun if you have a bad guy that comes with the gun, right? And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Talking them through these things to help them understand that we're not just the bad guys that some people say that we are. So that carries on through it. And like you said, having the district that supports that, have one, you know, from the elementary all the way up, you don't see that. You know, Springdale's adding school security officers because they don't have enough SROs. They don't have SROs at all in their elementaries. Middle school, junior school, or junior high and high school, and that's it. Not even at all in their elementaries, and they're missing such a huge opportunity. Because unfortunately, some of this behavior that he talks about starts when they're even that little. They're exposed to such traumatic events when they are that little, that if we can get in there that from the beginning and start building these relationships with them, they'll come and talk to us sooner and not wait until, you know, something else has happened so many years later that they finally come forward and say something. So
We have a business downtown that the owners are from St. Louis originally, and they've been there quite a while, but when the whole defund the police was going around, they had a sign in their windows, defund the police. They were completely against any funding of taxpayer dollars for the police. And I believe that, as you were saying, and I've said it for a year too, that when you have the children start to identify that the police are good, that the police are there for their protection and to help them, you end up having some grow up wanting to make it a career.
yes.
And when they get into high school, they have a lot more propensity to open up and let, because they've been around them since they were kids. The other thing I was gonna say, I don't know, and as long as the two of you have been with Siloam, I saw a little meme on the internet the other day that said the most obnoxious phrase in the world. I just moved here from California. Have you guys seen a lot more of what you're dealing with in the last 4 or 5 years since there's, I mean, I've heard it, that there's a lot more people moving to Northwest Arkansas from California. Has it really gone up a lot, or has it just kind of been steady no matter what?
I think the most stuff I deal with the cyber stuff is just because technology. It's technology's more available to kids. I'm working cases of as young as 10 years old. So it's just how technology advances, we give our kids phones at younger ages, and so they have that now. So I don't think, so that's the biggest thing, is just that technology's more easily available to everybody. So with that comes the dark side of it. Any more questions?
This may not be in your bailiwick, but is fentanyl an issue here in Siloam?
We do run into quite a bit of it. We have some guys who to just do the narcotic side of it, and they've made quite a bit of arrests with the fentanyl. Recently, yeah, she can tell you more about what we just.
So last week, wasn't it? Yeah, last week, the Rotary Club actually came in and donated several kits, a kit for each individual officer in the department. They purchased a bunch. I guess they're doing it nationwide. The Rotaries nationwide have went out and purchased a bunch of naloxone kits, the Narcan kits, for that reason, that if we come across somebody who's overdosed, then we'll have it there with us. Any other questions? I feel like we're taking like all the time.
Just curious about the percentages and types of crimes that we're seeing in our area. What are the highest percentages? Is it the drugs, or is it what you've been talking about?
It's everything. I mean,
I would say like what we would, patrol would deal with like on a daily basis.
Beanies and vehicles.
It's gonna be your breaking into your vehicles, your shoplifting, thefts, that kind of thing. And then domestic violence is always a really high one. And I think that's just, I don't think that's specific just to our area, but kind of across the country. But yeah, breaking or entering of vehicles is a huge one, because unfortunately, we don't always live in Mayberry anymore, and people tend to forget to lock their vehicles, or I swear I thought I locked it, and they leave valuable items in their vehicles, so that tends to be one, just because it's a crime of opportunity.
99% of the break-ins of cars are unlocks.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Excellent information. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of that with us. We're now going to go into the business meeting. If our guests want to leave, that's quite all right. Go back and eat some more food. We have a lot there. if you would like to stay, I'd really enjoy having some of our guests stay for the business meeting, but it's very short. We did not have any minutes from August because it was a joint meeting with the Republican Party of Benton County. So the treasurer's report was emailed to you. And Kathy, if you would like to come up and talk about that.
Administrative treasurer's report you all received by email. I had another expense today that I needed to write a check for, so the balance now is $310. We have two accounts, administrative, and then our political action committee account. So we also, then our political action committee account has been at $1196.50, and we made several contributions to candidates today. So we made $1,100 worth of contributions. So our balance now on our PAC account is $96.50.
Thank you very much. I just need a motion to accept the treasurer's report in a second. All right, Helen, in a second. Okay, Amy, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Minnie Greening is our legislative chair, and she has some things she wants to share with us, along with our representative Delia Hawk. So, are you going to come up, Delia?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Any questions I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I'm gonna make this pretty quick. So we had, I was looking at some stuff, and Ballotpedia is a place to go to find what amendments are on the, or what articles are on the ballot come November. There's 4 different ones, so you need to go in and read about those. I've got where you can sign up and get the app on your phone. I'm gonna lay these back there. There's an Apple one, and then there's also the one through Google. I'm just gonna tell you the 4 different ones. Let's see, issue 1 is a legislative authority to call a special session amendment. And I think that's where the legislators can actually call a special session and not just the governor. Am I correct on that?
That's right.
Okay. The other one, number 2 is supermajority vote requirement for constitutional amendments and ballot incentive measures. I didn't read much on that. Do you want to explain that just a little bit? Do you know what?
So, they're looking at, rather than just 50% majority of signatures to get an amendment on the ballot, it would be 60%.
We're not gonna be able to pick that up unless you come up with a microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, take mine.
So on the second issue, it's, right now, there's only 50% that's required to put an issue on the ballot, and this would be that it would require 60%. And the reason for that was trying to look at, sometimes a lot of groups will come in from out of state and collect signatures to get an issue on the ballot, and it makes it very, we shouldn't say easy, but it makes it much easier to get certain issues on the ballot that our Kansans are not really in favor of. And this really looks at trying to raise that percentage to 60% of signatures to get an issue on the ballot. And then on issue 1, read that one again.
Legislative authority to call a special session, special session.
Thank you, because I remembered. The reason for this was during the recent pandemic, when many times the legislature wanted to convene to talk about certain issues and things that were coming up. They were not really under our current law, and they're not able to do that. Only the governor can call a special session. And that's anything outside of our regular legislative session. That's every odd year after an election, and then our fiscal session, which is usually only 45 days in the even numbered year. So if something like a pandemic comes up that's outside of that time frame, the legislature itself could not vote, and it would have to be a vote to call themselves back into session. So I do think I was in favor of that as well, because there were issues that the legislature really wanted to voice opinions about.
They had to wait on the governor. Okay, issue 3, government burden of free exercise of religious amendment.
So this is one I'm really, really thankful that we got this one on the ballot for November. There's not in our Constitution a religious freedom amendment in our Constitution. We have a law for that, but laws we know can be changed. So this would put our religious freedom, much like it is in the U.S. Constitution, into the Arkansas Constitution. So I just really think that's probably, of everything we're voting on, it probably is the most important thing that we get. Arkansans have religious freedom in our Constitution.
And then issue 4 is the marijuana legalization incentive.
Yeah, and we're not sure that's actually going to be, it may be on the ballot before the Supreme Court actually rules on the wording of it, but if they rule against it, that means any votes that were cast in favor of it wouldn't count. So right now, that's kind of up in the air. They think it will be on the ballot, but I certainly hope, given all the things we've heard about the Wild West and recreational marijuana, that it doesn't come to here. And then one other issue that, as the police officers were talking, that will be on the ballot is for the jail, the Benton County Jail expansion. And I know in Washington County, they're looking at the same thing. And if you all remember back in the spring, we had a bank robbery here at the Arvest Bank. And the bank robber walked in and walked out. And thankfully, they caught him not too long after that. But he had been, well, he wasn't on parole. He was on bail out of Jacksonville, Arkansas, had robbed a bank in Jacksonville just 8 months prior to robbing the one here in Siloam-Springs. And he was out on bail and robbing another bank. And the reason for that is many of our county jails are overcrowded. And certainly with the population growth of Benton County, when we've added 2 new House seats and 1 new Senate seat, and that's at least 90,000 people in the last 10 years, that, you know, to me, there's a lot of need for people want public safety, and there's a cost to that. But if they want public safety, the kinds of people we were talking about that needed to be in jail and stay in jail, we've got to have places for them and not have them out on bond robbing banks again after robbing ones on the other side of the state.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay. The other things that you can find in on this website is when to vote, and our in-person, to be able to register to vote in person is October the 10th. So you have to get registered by October the 10th if you're going to voter registration deadline. By mail, it has to be postmarked by October the 10th. So if you're registering to vote in person, you have to be there by October the 10th. Doing absentee or mail-in ballots, the deadline is in person November the 4th. By mail, it has to be received by November the 1st. So just look at that and make sure that you get all your deadlines met. I did want to say about our guests, I know they've all left, but I work at a preschool, and every year we ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? One of the highest is a police officer. The other highest is a firefighter, but the one that beats them all is Batman. Every year.
Are you passing those out, or? Okay. All right, they'll be at the back table if you want to see those. Oh, you pick mine up. You get my brain. All right. Okay. There's a little note there in italics at the end of the business meeting that I want you to pay attention to because it's really, really important. The nominating committee's been working very hard, and we are doing pretty well, I think, but we need a president. So, I'm looking at all of you, and I want somebody, hopefully someone who's here, but maybe someone who's not here that you know of, that's a member, or will become a member to be the president, who has some experience with the Republican Party, someone who's just moved in perhaps. So they don't have to have experience here with the Republican Party, but they do need to subscribe to our platform, which is God first, family second, country third. Okay? So please be in prayer for a president for next year. All right, and then there are a few announcements. Tomorrow is the meeting of the Benton County Republican Women at 11:30 at the Golden Corral in Rogers. The Republican Party headquarters in Rogers is now open, and they are looking for hosts and welcome people to work that. And you can work as few as 2 hours. If you want to drive up there and work only 2 hours, that's fine. You may want to work longer, and you can do that as well. The NFRW has something called the Draw the Circle Prayer Challenge, and that's going to be at 3 p.m. on September 26th, and you can find the link in your NFRW newsletter. So members get the NFRW newsletter, so look for that Circle Prayer Challenge. And most of the others you can see on there. The First Friday Coffee for the Chamber, and all members are welcome to come because the club is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be at the casino, 7:30 in the morning, First Friday, 7:30 to 8. And they're going to have really good food. So I would encourage all of you to come. All right. Are there any other announcements that I've forgotten? Yes, Mitty?
Did you announce about the American Legion pancake breakfast is this Saturday?
I didn't know.
Not this Saturday, the 24th. It's on the 24th, so it's this Saturday.
Oh, okay. American Legion Pancake Breakfast. Oh, yes, and with all their silent auction items. It's a lot of fun. It's down at the community building.
It starts at 7 a.m.
Okay, got to get up early on Saturday morning on the 24th. Is that right? Okay, so.
Also, Siloam-Springs has a prayer every Saturday, first Saturday of every month from 9 to 10 at the Chamber of Commerce.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So 9 o'clock,
9 o'clock.
the first Saturday.
Saturday of every month, at the Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce downtown.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a great thing for us to be involved in. All right, there are many things in the works. You'll hear about things later, but keep coming, invite your friends, and our meeting is adjourned.